Hello everyone, back again. This time I'm going to continue on to my Marvel film reviews and talk about Thor, the first Thor movie that came out in 2011. Now I reviewed Iron Man 1, Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, and now Thor. And I'm doing them in the chronological order I can, and how I feel chronologically, how they're supposed to be reviewed. So Thor is the one that occurs concurrently with Iron Man 2 and the Incredible Hulk. So it was hard to choose which one to watch or which one to review out of the three, first, second, and third. But I guess I just put them in release order because those three are all so close in the time span that you can watch any of them at the same time or whatever time, mix them around, and they'd all connect chronologically. But Thor is an interesting. The first Thor is really interesting because we only had Iron Man and the Incredible Hulk first in this universe, and those are the ones that I feel like are easier to adapt into a movie. And Thor, I'm wondering. I'm glad. I like the product that they got. I really do love this first Thor movie. I think it's really good in terms of entertainment and in terms of likable characters. I think that this is a really great, entertaining movie, but it's it's interesting in how I'm glad they adapted it this way, but they could have adapted it in such a different way that I might not have enjoyed it because Thor is a character that is quote unquote like a barbarian type character where he doesn't think about really like repercussions. He's one to fight, one to kill, one to murder. And I like the idea of how they incorporate that into this movie with the character and how he makes this mistake and is cast out of Asgard and make it a fish out of water story, but in a good way. I really do appreciate that, and I love how this movie too, in the Asgard scenes, they make it really. I kind of want to say Shakespearean in terms of how it feels, not with the writing. I'm not saying it's like Shakespeare level writing or anything. I just mean in terms of how it looks, the scope. I feel like it reminds me of something like that. And it works because Kenneth Branagh directed the first Thor. And he really brought his signature on this movie because of all the other movies he's done. This reminded me of that, just how the scope and how it felt like his other movies in a good way. And I thought that Kenneth Branagh was a great choice for this movie because he gave the movie a lot of dignity and a lot of, even though it has the Marvel humor, and I'm not saying that's bad, I'm saying that's fine, but it's interesting that they do make it seem more try to be, well, try to make it upper quality in terms of how the movie looks and how it feels in terms of what it could have been. Like it could have been just this dorky barbarian guy being stupid and killing a lot of people. Even though I know nothing about the comics, so don't rag on me for this. But I feel like if I read the comics, I felt like it would be like this, where this character is probably not the smartest or the brightest, but I like how the movie interprets that, and I like how this character does learn a lesson through wanting war, and Odin telling him that you do not need, war is not the answer for everything. That's not how you start something. And I like how he's young and naive, Thor is. And I like the idea of how he is cast out. And I like the idea of how he is on Earth. And I think that, honestly, in terms of the first two, I like this one way more because even though the second one has more of Asgard and and how beautiful it is, and how you get more exploration in Thor: The Dark World, I like how this one really keeps it at a minimum. Like you get the idea of the scope of Asgard, and you get the how beautiful it is and how you see how these people work and you see how it works there. But I like how Thor is cast out and he is thrown onto Earth and he learns a lesson. But I like how it incorporates this love story, which is just okay, about him and Jane Foster. And I like how that's how Thor learns his lesson. He makes friends on Earth, realizes that he should not seek out war. He needs to understand that it's not something that you stupidly go out and do. And I liked this character's arc. I thought his arc was really good in this movie. And I liked all the characters too. I thought they were all entertaining. Like Thor is a cool character, and I like his arc, and I liked how Jane Foster, who is the quote-unquote just love interest in the movie, but she has stuff to do, I guess. I like how she's this astrophysicist who wants to figure out what is going on, because whenever Thor lands on Earth, like, of course there's disruptions, and she can tell the difference in what is going on, and I like the idea of her trying to figure this out and trying to figure out who Thor is. And I like that made the romance angle a little better. Just having them kind of learn about each other's worlds together. And I thought that made it more interesting and more than just a typical bland romance. And you can argue that this is bland too. A lot of people do. A lot of people don't like the romance in the first two movies. But I think that it's fine. I think it doesn't bother me. It's just something that's alright. But the movie itself, I still love. I still love the characters. I still love the overarching story. I love the scope. I love the visuals. The comedy is funny. I like how after Iron Man 2, they didn't go and make it more convoluted like Iron Man 2 was. And the only thing they really have that's not, like, that's connected to the outer universe is Hawkeye for, like, a scene, and then you get Coulson in this movie. But it makes sense in terms of the plot, in terms of how Coulson in Iron Man 2 goes to New Mexico. And I like how it incorporates that from Iron Man 2. So if you watch Iron Man 2, you can go right into this and go, oh, there's Coulson. And it even has the after credit scene in Iron Man 2 anyways, of Thor's hammer in New Mexico. But I like the idea of having Phil Coulson in here in almost all of these first 5 movies before the Avengers. Or I think Avengers would be 5. In all of the Phase 1 movies. I like how he's in almost all of them, and he's kind of like the connecting bridge between them all. I think that's really cool. Besides the Incredible Hulk and Captain America, he's not in those, but I like the idea how he connects, even when he's not in those movies, he still connects to them in a way. But I like that he's back, and I like how all these new characters are interesting and fun, just like the other movies before this. They all have funny quirks. They all have, like, Thor's the only one with real arc, but I like how all these characters are interesting and funny, and they have funny jokes. And I liked Odin a lot. Anthony Hopkins, of course. And I love how Kenneth Branagh brought back Anthony Hopkins for another movie that he's directed. I think that's cool. And I think that Anthony Hopkins brings a lot of dignity to this role. And like I said, if it wasn't Kenneth Branagh directing this, I feel like this movie could have been way off the rails. And I'm glad that they tried to make this movie not so overly different. Like, it's more on the Earth angle, which makes sense for the universe starting out, where you're like, okay, all these characters are already on Earth so far. Iron Man and Hulk before this movie. So it makes sense to keep it in the Earth angle right now. And then they'll start getting experimental with the other movies after this one. But I like that they stayed on Earth for the most part. And the Asgard parts, I feel like, are in it enough, just enough to justify the Asgard scenes. I think they're really good and cool too. But overall, I just think Thor 1, to me, just is a really, really entertaining movie. I still love all the characters. I still love the story. I still love Thor's arc. I still like all the characters. They're all likable. They all have great things about them. And I think that they all just work well in this movie. And I'm glad it's one of these movies that did not go over the top and over the rails like I would have assumed this would be. Because you're thinking of making a movie about Thor, the God of Thunder. You would have expected something way more cheesier and way more stupid than this. But they did a really good job. And I love the first Thor movie. I think that they did a really great job, and I'm really excited to talk about the other ones. But next is Captain America: The First Avenger. Thanks for watching, and see you at the next video.